How's it going, everyone? My name is Colin Winters, and I am the host of Panthers Place, and today we'll be talking about the absolutely aggravating loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to preface this with I am very, very happy with how most of the game went, and that this anger comes from a feeling I haven't been able to feel in a long time, and that is I believe that this is a game that Panthers should have won, and that we deserve to win, that we just didn't do enough to do. It's a competitive anger that I haven't been able to feel in a long time. So the fact that I even get to feel this and not just some sort of apathetic gut feeling that I have after a loss like I did most of last year, except for like maybe the Green Bay game, then I'm pretty happy with that. But I am going to sound very angry and very harsh to this team this video, and while I think it is warranted, do just take it with a grain of salt that I may be a little bit angrier than I should be. Now, first off, we're going to go over a few players that I believe deserve a little bit of a spotlight for playing extremely well this game. That, of course, being Andy Dalton, Chuba Hubbard, and Diontae Johnson on offense, just like it was before. Even Miles Sanders gets an honorable mention because he did some pretty hard running this week. And then on defense, you have players like J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson. We'll get into more about those two later. And then also you have guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who, while he didn't get a lot of pressure, he was the only sense of pressure that we ever got, even though it really wasn't much. And that will be another talking point very soon. The beginning of this game was a very interesting run for the Carolina Panthers because we got all the way to the 1 yard line at our first opening drive and we were going to punch it in, but we just seemed to have no variance in play calling when it comes to down and goal distance. If it's just like 1 yard to the goal line, or even when it comes to like very short yardage for third down plays and stuff like that, we seem to do a lot of the same stuff on the goal line and those short distance plays, and that can either be just run up the gut with Chuba Hubbard or do some sort of flat route with Diontae Johnson, and defenses are starting to key in on that now, and that is why in the first set of plays, the first drive, Jesus Christ, my brain, the first drive of the game, we were stuffed on the goal line because we just did the same stuff that we have been over and over again. Tried it with Diontae Johnson, didn't work. It just ran it up with Chuba Hubbard. He got stuffed, and it let us down in the first play of the first drive of the game and allowed the Bengals to go and score the first set of points. The defense showed very early on that it was going to be an iffy game for them. They had some stops throughout this game. They had some terrible drives where they just couldn't let up any, like they let everything that went through them. The running defense, of course, as per usual, was very bad for the Panthers today, letting up huge runs by Chase Brown and Zach Moss. It was just, it was honestly god-awful and infuriating to watch how we could not be able to tackle a running back this game. We had no pressure when it came to our nose tackles. We had Nick Thurman in there, LeBron Ray. We had PV in there. They couldn't do anything when it came to it. Very few times did I ever notice them making a play. It just goes to show how much we are missing Derek Brown and Shai Tuttle, the veteran guys that we have there, our big-name defensive tackle. We are really missing those guys, and if we do think that this team could be competitive with more teams later on, we have to do something now rather than later to get some guy in there in the meantime, because we're not getting Derek Brown back this season. We don't know how long Shai Tuttle is going to be out. Passing defense was about as much as I would expect. It was Joe Burrow we were going up against. The Bengals team is probably the best 0-3 team there was. I believe we were going up a team that was much better than their record has suggested. So the fact that we were competitive as we were with this team, I'm very proud of. And the passing defense was pretty okay. It was like we let up some big plays. There was that one play to Ja'Marr Chase where for some reason Xavier Woods decided to lower the shoulder in the open field right at midfield as if that's going to do anything to Ja'Marr fucking Chase. Just wrap the fucker up, dude. I swear to God, because after that, then we had Harris miss a tackle, and then Troy Hill miss a tackle, and there was another guy, I completely forgot who it was, but 4 Panthers had an opportunity to tackle him on that 63-yard passing play, and just didn't. And open field tackling ended up being an issue pretty much the entirety of the game, especially with the running backs, as I said before. That it also includes on checkdowns. There was a deep third down play that would have really put the Panthers in a great position to try and come back and win this thing deep in the fourth quarter. It was right before the third where the play happened. It was like 50, some seconds left in the third quarter, probably even less, and then it was a third and long play. Jadeveon Clowney finally gets some pressure. Joe Burrow's rolling out, looking all around, and then he just dumps it off to Zach Moss, who just has an open field to go and get the first down. It was awful. I don't know how you fail to cover a check down, but it was just a terrible play altogether, and the Panthers could not tackle into open field worth of shit. The running game for the Panthers, on the other hand, was about hot and cold. They had a few good runs. They had a few runs that got stuffed. Pretty much On that side of the football, it was very evenly matched. The defensive line for the Bengals matched up very well against the offensive line for the Panthers, and those two just went at it the entire game, and I think both of them deserve credit for what they did. Sometimes the Bengals won that matchup, sometimes the Panthers did. That one was just very even and very interesting to watch, and very entertaining, to be frank. And now I'm going to talk really quickly about why I was really, really angry entering the second half, and it's because of what happened right before the first half. And I wanted to wait until now to talk about it, so I didn't start the video with complaining about the refs, but now I get my chance to. These two teams were so well matched this game that there was no reason that the refs had to actually interfere. And yet, near the end of the first half, they did. They called 2 defensive pass interference calls against our top 2 corners for no goddamn reason. So Joe Burrow and the Bengals were running down the field. They were getting a lot of good plays, but they were starting to slow down slug near the red zone. They got a PI call against Mike Jackson against, I believe it was T. Higgins or Ja'Marr Chase. They called Mike Jackson for PI, and pretty much the two players, I think it was Higgins, they were just battling it out. They were being tough with each other the entire route, and for some reason, Jackson gets tagged. Okay, that's pretty stupid. They're now really close to the goal line. See what they have to do. Then they get J.C. Horn on a defensive PI call, which, if anything, it should have been offensive PI on Higgins, putting the Bengals first and goal on the 1-yard line, which then just gets punched in by Chase Brown. That pissed me off to no end, because there was no reason for us to have needed the Bengals to get any help from the refs. Because the Bengals, if the ending of that should have been 17-14 going to the half, a much more manageable game for the Panthers and a much closer game on the box score. But instead, they go in with a 21-14 lead, getting the ball first to start the second half. It is a crazy advantage to the Bengals that they didn't need, because this game was going so good for both of the teams. They were very evenly matched. It was a very well-coached spectacle. Both head coaches trying to play a chess match against each other, and yet for some reason, the refs decided to throw in their flags and ruin the feeling for everybody. I believe that if you're a good fan of the sport, even if a call goes your way, you're still going to call it out. So I feel like I had a lot of Bengals fans talking that, yeah, those calls didn't make any sense. And of course, you're going to get some that will defend it, night and day, because, of course, it isn't favoritism to your team. But it just very much was. And it felt like the whole narrative of, oh, the NFL won't allow the Bengals to go 0-4 was real. Now, I don't believe it to that extent, but it just felt very, very, very disheartening from a game that was going so well and was so evenly matched and fun to watch. Now, the refs aren't the only thing that made the Panthers lose. The fact that the Panthers defense got even worse as the game went on was a big issue, because the Panthers defense, even though they didn't allow as many points in the first half as they did in the second half, it still felt like they were getting ran on all over the place. Sure, the Bengals weren't able to punch it in, but they were just on ice skates the entire time. They got a few good stops, but it felt like it was out of reach the entire time, no matter how many chances our offense got to try to put more points on the board. Even when Joe Burrow threw an interception, I was very hyped up, and then we immediately just pretty much did nothing. We had to give the ball right back, and we put him back deep. We get the ball right back deep in our territory. Go 3 and out. Give them good field position. They just go down, kick another field goal, putting it out of range. It was just out of reach for a while. And the fact that I was so angry during that time and still pumped up instead of just like, oh well, does mean that I feel like this team is going in the right direction even with this loss. But I feel like there's a lot to complain about when it comes to the heart the team showed near the end of the game. And I do want to talk about the heart shown with that final drive. Yes, the game was pretty much out of reach. We had less than a minute left to go with 1 drive left and 2 scores. We would have had to either get a field goal and declare an onside or get a touchdown and declare an onside. There was no other way to do that, and sure, that's pretty much already out of reach. 99% win chance probability for the Bengals. But my issue is the fact that even if it's out of reach, I want to see 100% effort the entire time, and I don't feel like I saw that on our final drive. It felt very sluggish, like they didn't really care that the clock was winding down. We had no more timeouts. There was a lot of throws to the middle of the field, even though that wouldn't stop the clock. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And I felt like there was no real effort by Andy Dalton or anyone on the Panthers offense to get the guys set up quicker. There was no running to their places. There was just a light jog. It felt like they didn't care. And on the final play where Andy Dalton had to look downfield for something, he just decides to take a scramble and run out of bounds. So even though I'm glad that they took the decision not to get hurt and not to get smacked, not even throwing the ball downfield to try and get something. It just feels like a real lack of effort once you realize the game's out of the line. You can call it a business decision if you'd like, but as a fan, you just don't like to see that lack of an effort, even if the game's out of reach. You want to see 100% till the final whistle. That's just, I feel like we didn't reach that. But overall, the game was still very good because the Panthers felt competitive, and that's going to be the end point for the Panthers to actually, hold on to when going into next week. You were competitive against the Bengals, a team that, albeit were 0-3, was the best 0-3 team there is in football and are much better than their record states. The Bengals seem to be a team this year that are starting out very slow, had a weird upset against the Patriots, but now they're starting to come back into form. We're seeing a lot more with them. Of course, they had a few injuries now. Trey Hendrickson had a neck injury this game. Hopefully he's okay. The Panthers had a few bad injuries to both their interior linebackers, that being, of course, Shaq Thompson and Josie Jewell. Both of them left the game with a heel and groin injury, respectively. Hamstring groin for Jewell, a heel injury for Shaq Thompson, both of which went back to the locker room. And overall, I hope those guys are okay, but the team was competitive. The team was competitive against a team that I think is at least good, if not very good. And I do think we have hope for the NFC, because if we can rattle off just a few more wins, the NFC is a very squishy conference, and maybe we surprise people and get to the wild card. At the very least, we are going to go and win a few more games with Andy Dalton than we would with Young. Young has the time to learn. He was very happy on the sideline, talking to Dalton a lot, chatting him up, pretty much getting all the information he could out of him. I'm very glad to see that he's just trying his best to learn, embracing the backup role well, being a great teammate. I'm glad to see that Dave Canales is doing a lot more with this offense. Xavier Legette getting his first touchdown on the season. Very fantastic. Very good things to look forward to, and a lot of hope for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. Something that we have not been able to say in the past 7 years as fans. So while it might be a loss, we were competitive, and that's all I can hope for right now with the season looking like it was already dead in the water by week 2. So thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Keep pounding.